Welcome. I'm here with Mike Colavita from Fat Buddha Glass. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Man, thank you for having. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have a conversation. I always enjoy talking about the cannabis industry. Not only is it interesting, but and to be able to have a new industry that's growing so fast, it always ends up being good conversations. Now you started Fat Buddha Glass in 2017. What I'm curious about is this your first entrepreneurial endeavor, or has this kind of been a path for you most of your career?
Now, this is not my first. I've always known when I was like a little kid, I always knew I wanted to own some kind of business. So this is not my first. The first one, I love cars. And so I had like a aftermarket car parts business for a little while and kind of took that knowledge and was able to transfer it into this. And so not the first time going that business, but definitely the funnest and best time doing it.
Now, was the move over into glassware and hardware in the cannabis business, was that just an interest to you? Was it you knew people in the supply chain in China and you were able to drive some more inventory and you just realized and you ran into somebody somehow? Talk about how you started Fat Buddha Glass.
Yeah, so it honestly, it is a passion project. Started this business with my childhood best friend. We met in 8th grade in 1988. We both have collected glass for years and years and years. We both knew that we wanted to own some kind of businesses, and we tried a couple of little things with each other and they just didn't really pan out. And then one day we were like looking to buy a piece of glass, and we used to have to drive really far away, or the buying it online, it was always kind of like we had bad experiences. So we were like, okay, well, we love glass and we both have had business experience, and so we thought we could kind of do it better. So that's how we started going down the path with glass. It wasn't that we knew people, it was just that this is what we were really passionate about, and so that's where we kind of like put our attention.
So how'd you actually start and fund the business? Was this just kind of, shoestring, kind of
Yeah.
doing it on
Yeah.
your own, or did you actually go try to raise money for this? How'd you get started with this?
No, we bootstrapped this from the get-go, and we started this business with $500. Both my partner and I had full-time jobs, and this was just kind of a side hustle. So we made our initial order of $500, and every single cent for the first 2 years went immediately back into the business. The only thing that we took out of the business over that first 2 years is we did like a celebratory dinner with our families, and that was one time. But other than that, every single cent went back into the business. And we stayed doing our full-time jobs until it was to the point where like, all right, we got some traction here, we could go full-time, and then we started taking a salary. But we're proud of this. We've bootstrapped it. We've never taken any investment. We've never actually even carried debt. It's all been just taking that $500, reinvesting it, and then 4 years later being, a multi 7-figure business, all off of just reinvesting that $500.
That's awesome. And so to talk a little bit about doing it as a side hustle, because I think a lot of listeners are wanting to do a side hustle, trying to figure out how to manage that, between family and the
Yeah.
existing career. Can you talk about how you actually managed through that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely tough. Like I said, those first 2 years, full-time jobs. Both my partner and I were both married. We both have 2 kids. So there's just a lot of, other responsibilities we had. So it would
Was
literally
this just a
be,
reason for you guys to hang out in the beginning?
it was
Just kidding.
definitely fun. We enjoyed it, and we still talk about it. Like we used to love, like, on Saturday mornings or even like Friday nights, we'd be at his house because we started in his garage, like in the nook of his garage. We'd be sitting there and we did everything. We were boxing, tearing bubble wrap, making boxes. And yeah, it was tough. We were there till 2 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, when we were hanging out, it was kind of just like, hey, we're best friends and we're hanging out and having fun and we're doing this thing on the side. So yeah, it was definitely a good reason for us to hang out. And so it was a lot of fun.
How did you manage the responsibilities with the family, wife, 2 kids, and then you're,
Yeah.
Friday night till 2 a.m., having energy to be able to play with the kids the next day, still being able to kind of focus in on work too when you were excited about this?
because it was just a passion, honestly. And I got to give a lot of credit to both of our wives. My partner's wife, she let us take over their house. We started in the nook of the garage, and the next thing you know, we took over the whole garage, and then we took over this room in the basement, and then downstairs. And she was such a good sport. She was very supportive of it. My wife, at one point, I remember she's 8 months pregnant. It was right before the holidays, and she's telling me, go do this. And by the way, my partner and I, we lived about an hour away from each other, and
Oh,
everything
geez.
was at his house. So it was a lot of driving, but we just had really supportive families. Like, they knew that we had a passion. They saw how hard and we were working and how dedicated. So they really encouraged us. Okay, this is the time. Go after it and do it. So without them, we probably wouldn't be where we were. Actually, not we definitely wouldn't be there. Um, but we just took advantage of every opportunity. We came home from work, we did our responsibilities with our families, put our daughters to bed, and then afterwards, we're sitting on a computer, working on the website, doing whatever we could. We maximized every single moment we had. We definitely gave up a lot. There wasn't much time for recreational activities, but we thought, okay, we got something. It's worth it. So it's definitely a lot of hard work, but we figured sacrifice in the short term for a long term rewards.
How'd you make the decision to leave your full-time job and actually start running the business? That when did you know that inflection point was there?
So, and it was this is a super scary time. I had a job that I loved. I worked for an actual, like, a marketing company, and the two owners of the company were great. I still call them mentors. I still reach out to them on a regular basis. And so it was tough because I loved that job, but I could see that we had almost reached a plateau. Things were going pretty good for us, doing it on the side, but we really couldn't take it to the next level unless we were dedicated, in here every day, working on the business. And so it was a scary moment, but we just kind of realized, all right, if we really want to go to the next step, we got to take a risk. Without taking a risk, we would have just kind of stayed at that level, which would have been nice. We had extra income coming in, but we really had big goals. We are very passionate about entrepreneurship and this business in particular. So we just said, okay, we got to jump in. And we made that leap. And honestly, it was the best thing that we did, because the business grew significantly after we were able to dedicate more time and resources to it.
Did you guys make the decision together to leave at the same time, or did one of you go first?
Yeah, I went first. Um, it was just so
Did you
my
go,
partner and
hey,
I,
yeah, you're covering my mortgage if this doesn't work?
it, it was a scary time for sure. I was like, what are we gonna do? And you know, again, my partner was like super supportive of what, like, there were certain things that I needed to have happen for me to be able to leave that job, and
Yeah.
he was super supportive of it. And yeah, it was definitely a crazy time. And the worst thing happened is like right when I was leaving to come full time, I had just had my second daughter. So that's not the worst thing, but I'm just saying it was like a scary time. It was a
Right,
very
right,
scary
right. That's the time where you feel like you got to be responsible and you might be making an irresponsible
time.
decision.
Exactly. So it was like right after she was born, we were like, okay, we're doing it. And again, credit to my wife, and she was just like, this is the time, go ahead. She had confidence in us. She saw how hard that we worked, and she's like, go ahead and do it. So it was nerve-wracking for sure, but it was just that I had a great support staff between my partner and my wife and family, that I felt confident that was the time to do it.
Did you, as you were thinking about making that transition, and I don't mean to spend too much time on this, but it's one of these ones that I think people struggle with on when that decision happens. Um, did you, in your mind, have to have a certain amount of money saved? Did you, in your mind, decide to cut your income or cut your expenses to a certain level where you could feel good? Did you have these kind of markers, or was it more of like this gut feel of saying, hey, we're at a spot, the revenue hit X number, I feel like I could jump there? Was there any science to it, or was it relatively kind of gut feel like it's time?
You know what? It's a little bit of both. So I'm lucky. My wife is a financial planner, and so she definitely
Helps.
was like, okay, we got to look at it and just make sure that we're going to be okay. And so we definitely had markers in line where I had to be at to make that move. But it was just also a gut feeling like, okay, I know that we're going to be able to grow at a significant pace if I'm there full time. And so it was a combination of both. We definitely had like the numbers that had to be met for me to do it, but that was the time to do it. And it paid off. It turned out it was the exact right time for us to do it.
That's awesome. So you got into an industry that a lot of people just find as interesting. So if I'm gonna, so I used to sit on the board of a publicly traded cannabis company. So I'm familiar with the industry and spend time with a lot of the players and the people around. And if compared to the business that I typically run in my day job, everybody at a dinner party would want to talk cannabis. Like that was the fun thing to
Yeah.
talk about, and
Yeah.
it was more exciting for people. That so it's brought in though into the industry, not a lot of people that are real serious about running a business because it's just kind of a sexy industry that people find,
Yeah.
intriguing. Can you talk about maybe some bad advice you got in getting in the industry that you would like to debunk to other people? Or possibly on the flip side of that, maybe some good advice you got when you were getting in the industry.
When we were getting into this industry, I would be honest, we didn't know too many people involved in it. So it was tough to pull information from people that are in the business, specifically on the cannabis business or industry. Uh, I did have some really great mentors that were just saying, okay, if this is something you believe in, then this is something you should go after. For example, like my parents growing up, cannabis is not something that was acceptable in our household. My dad was the
Same.
sheriff of the town that I lived in. And so when I would talk to him about it, I was very nervous. But he was just telling me, if this is something you're passionate about and you believe that it's going to grow, then this is something you should do. And that like really hit home with me because here it is, this guy who was in the military and then was a sheriff, and cannabis was not something that he was okay with. But he's telling me, hey, if this is something that you truly believe in, he's like, and you think it's going to grow, then you should do it. Um, and you're right. We do get a lot of people that try to talk to us, that want to talk to us about it because it is like a sexy topic. When people hear about it, they're like, oh, that they get really intrigued, and we get a lot of questions about it. Um, I did have a couple of people tell me that specifically what we wanted to do, the accessories. They're like, well, I don't see that as being like a long-term business. I don't see how that you're gonna be able to grow that. And so I did have a few naysayers specifically talking about the accessory side of the business. They just like, that's just, I don't see how you're going to build return business. I don't see how you're going to be able to have
How you actually
a group
scale
of
that
customers.
business.
Yeah. And that actually came from someone that I really, really respected. And I'm glad I didn't listen to him because it is possible to scale this type of business. There is a lot of opportunities out there. So I was just thinking, if you're passionate about it and you think there's a pathway to succeed, then go after it.
But I love that you actually told that story. So we talk about mentors a lot on the show and how important and impactful they are in kind of shaping where your career can go. That being said, a mentor only knows 10, 20% of the information because they're getting the information you're sharing with them. You can't share everything in your head and you can't share all the details with it. And if they're not in the industry, they're taking a little snippet of what they know and they're trying to use all their experience and education to give advice. And they're doing it from really a point that they believe they're right and they really feel like they're giving good advice based on the experience, which could be the case. But that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to follow it 100%. And the hard part is when you get it from somebody you respect and somebody you really trust, how much of a weighting do you put on that? And so to hear, yourself, struggling with that, but still deciding to move forward, I think is inspiring for others because you will get people doing. I think you got to try to rationalize and realize that, you don't have to take advice 100%. You got to compile all that advice you're getting from different people and allow yourself to make a good decision with all the information that you were given.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. You take little pieces of information from many people that you value their opinion, but ultimately you need to make that decision internally. No one's going to be as passionate about something about your project as you are. I'm sure that nobody has done as much research on it as you have. And so take that information, and it's not written in stone. It's not like, oh, this person said this, and so I need to just listen to what they're saying. No, just take little pieces, and then you need to take as much information so you can make the best decision. Have faith and trust yourself, but listen to other people, but ultimately that decision needs to fall to you. What do you think based off all your research, all your information? And I'm glad he told me that, because it gave me things to think about. When he said that, I did reevaluate some things. I still came to the same conclusion that yes, it is possible to scale this business, but he definitely made me think about things. And I think that's really important. And what a mentor is doing is, okay, they're just giving you information to think about. Then you take that information and you make the best decision possible.
I love that. So, you take the feedback, you take the information, and it might give you pause. If that gives you pause, do more research, do more homework. But if building a business was as easy as just doing what somebody told you to do, which is basically a franchise, but if you're starting a non-franchise, if it was easy for somebody to just tell you what to do and you do it, all businesses would succeed. They succeed because there is this creative element, along with some luck, but a creative element for you to be able to take all that information, compile it, do your own research, and make decisions. That being said, you started this business, you started to scale, you left your career, now you're full-time in the business. And you definitely probably had some setbacks and failures. And so I'd love to hear your favorite failure. And I say failure knowing that you learned from it. You might not look back now saying it was a failure because you turned it into something, but what you saw as a major setback or a failure at the time that might be worth sharing to either learn from or just a funny story.
Yeah, well, no, we had a major setback, and we call them roadblocks, or not roadblocks, excuse me. We call them speed bumps. They're not roadblocks, they're just speed bumps. And we've had
Right.
speed bumps. We've had speed bumps pop up out of the blue. Um, the biggest or the best story I can tell, because it was the worst thing that ever happened to our business and the best thing at the same time. So when we first started, and we didn't know much about search engine optimization. As I'm sure you know this, in the cannabis industry, you can't do much paid advertising, no Google ads, no Instagram ads, none of that stuff. So you really got to focus in on your search engine optimization, trying to rank organically in Google, and then maximizing every touch that you have with a potential customer. So we were working with the SEO company, and they told us, hey, we're going to get you ranking #1. You're going to be on top of the world here. Give us 1 year. And we were just excited. We didn't educate ourselves enough to know about SEO. We just knew that these people told us they were going to have us #1. Sure enough, within a year, they had us #1 for all these major keywords. And then all of a sudden, one day we woke up, we were #1 for all these keywords. We woke up, we were on page 10. It was the worst thing ever. We had the rug just pulled right out from underneath of us. For the first 2 days, we were completely just baffled. We were like in shock. And then we were like, okay, this happened. We could sit here and dwell on it, or we could learn from it. So we tried to do everything we could to educate ourselves on search engine optimization. And we have slowly worked our way back up to where all these major keywords, we rank towards the top now. So it was the worst thing for our business at the time, but it was the best thing because we learned from those failures. And again, like failures, they're only failures if you don't take away something from it to move forward. If you have if the only thing that's a failure is if you come into a speed bump and then you just throw your hands up and you're like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I don't want to do it. But if you can take from that experience and actually better yourself, it's a win. So yeah, it was the worst thing that ever happened to us. All of our organic traffic was gone overnight, but that forced us to educate ourselves. And then now here it is 3 years later. By no means are we SEO experts, but we've gained the knowledge to where when these big updates do come up, we're not getting hurt. We're getting it. We're doing things the right way, and we're getting back to the top of the rankings. So
It's interesting that most people will outsource something they don't understand or know. You guys decided to educate yourself and understanding what
yeah.
SEO is. And that, did you start to do all that in-house, or do you still outsource it, but now you're outsourcing it with significant education to be able to ask the right questions and be able
Yes.
to drive it the right way?
Yeah, so we do both. We do outsource some to we educated ourselves to know the questions to ask. Before we were just told, hey, we're gonna get you #1. Fantastic. Sign us up. Now
Yep.
when we're talking to a company, we have a really good understanding of SEO. So we get to ask the questions that we know are going to be important down the road. And it gives us the opportunity to inspect what we expect from our partners. If they say, hey, we're going to do this, okay, well, tell us, how are you going to do it? And when they start talking about it, we understand what they're saying, and we can tell us, hey, are they just kind of giving us some hot air, or is this a legitimate thing? So we do some of that SEO on our internally, but as far as just we don't have as much resources. We'd like to dedicate it in-house, so we do use some outside vendors for it.
Gotcha. All right, makes sense. So then, what do you think is your biggest challenge right now? What are you running into, whether it's in your industry or whether it's your particular company, that you're seeing as the obstacle you're trying to work through? That speed bump that you might see coming up at you. How you're thinking about it.
Well, the speed bump is we are limited in how we can get our name out there, just because we can't do the paid ads, we can't do anything like that. So we're just trying to be really creative. We have to really think outside of the box, as like compared to a normal company that's selling maybe shoes or something like that. We really need to think outside of the box of the way we can attract potential customers to come to us and just get those new clients. So we have a philosophy, like, once we get somebody to be aware of us, we're doing everything we can to give them the best possible experience, because each new customer or potential customer is gold to us, because it is very difficult to come by. And so this is definitely something more towards the cannabis industry, just that it's so hard to acquire new customers. So that's the biggest thing that we're dealing with, is like, okay, how do we get out there and get people to know who we are? And then once we get them to know who we are, we do everything we can to give them the best experience. We take customer service very serious. If you look at our reviews on Google, we've got 4.9 stars, because we really want to just hammer home customer service. But yeah, so the biggest thing for us is just being able to acquire new eyeballs on us.
Well, yeah. I think you came up with a cool name that makes me want to even check it out. How'd you come up with the Fat Buddha Glass?
It just came to us. Like, that's the very first name we came up with. And it came from a long time ago. A friend of mine was on a road trip, and this is back in high school. Yeah. Was on a road trip and stopped at some store, and someone handmade this Buddha and gave it to me as a present. And I kept it on my nightstand. It's still there to this day. It's been over 30 years, and it's still on my nightstand. And it's just always something that meant something to me. And it's just a feeling I get, that the Fat Buddha, it just means, feeling good, enlightenment, and things like that. And so when we were talking, okay, we're getting in the cannabis industry, that's just a perfect name, because it ties right into what we want people to feel and experience with our business. So it's a name that really means something to both me and my business partner. When we were deciding names, that was the first thing that popped up, and we both were like, that is it. That's us. That's like what we want. We're happy guys. We like to have fun. We want to feel good. And so that name just immediately was what stuck with us.
So in getting the name out there, so you talked about the SEO side, you talked about, your biggest speed up is continuing to try to bring on new customers and get returning customers. How do you think about building a brand? You have a good name. It's a good story behind the name. You've been able to get amount of sales. How are you starting to think about how you continue to be able to build that brand when you might not be this, big conglomerate or have a private equity backing that you can be able to go spend a ton of money on paid ads and marketing because it's such a congested, busy space that's expensive? How are you both thinking about to build the brand and to kind of scale that customer base?
Yeah. So our philosophy behind our brand is we just really want people to feel good about doing business with us. We honestly feel people want to do business with people they know, like, and I'll even take it a step further and say love, as opposed to just like, know, like, and trust, know, love, and trust. We want them to feel that we're just like them. We don't hide behind the business. We try to be out in front as much as possible. We want people to see that we're real people. We're in the same community as they are. We love the same things that they love. We want them to understand that we're not here just to look for the short-term buck. We want to build long-term relationships. We do take the customer service very serious. We want to provide not just products, but education. We try to put out a lot of videos and just educating people on the different types of products. And so that is something we take really serious, is that we just want people to understand that A, we care, B, we're in the same community as them, and we are definitely trying to build long-term relationships. So that's key for us. When we came into this business, we were like, okay, what's going to be our two differentiators? One is we wanted to come in with our pricing. We feel like we're pretty aggressive on pricing. We want things that people can fall in love with a piece, but not like break the bank. That's another thing. When we would buy glass, we were like, oh, this piece is beautiful, but we didn't have $200. At the time we were in our early 20s, we were like, we don't have $200 to spend on this. So we wanted to offer quality pieces at affordable prices. And then our other was just customer service. We wanted to do everything we could to make sure that once we do attract people, we make them lifelong customers and they're happy with us, and we'll do whatever we can. So that's the core of of how we want to build our brand, is just offering really cool products at great affordable prices, and then making the customers understand that we're here for the long haul and we want them to have the best experience ever. If they're not happy, we want to do whatever we can to make them happy, because it's cannabis. It should be a feel good experience, and we want people to feel good when they interact with us.
Yeah, and the cannabis space has never been a brand space, right? Obviously, it was a black market industry, and now it's moved, much more into the front and legal. And so, as in alcohol, you have the different brands associated with, whether it's the liquor, whether it's even certain types of wine glasses. You have the different brands associated with it. In cannabis, the brands haven't been a thing, and it's just starting to be. And
Yeah.
it's exciting to see you kind of leading the way in the glass space. Which can you just give me a sense? And we were talking about growth and how you're planning on growing. I'm curious, if you were given a $10 million, cash injection into your business that you can go spend however you want to spend on growth, how would you spend it?
Um, we would continue to get quality inventory, because that's, I think, a big thing. People like to see cool new pieces. So we would get inventory, of course, that that we personally would like. And also, we would spend that on being able to put out more content, not just sales content, but informational content, videos on how pieces are made. Just we would use a lot of that to create educational pieces for people, because if the more educated our customers are, I think it's the better for the entire industry. The more they know, the better it is for everybody. So again, inventory, being able to take those and take some money and make those videos, continue to put out, shareable content that that people can share and pass that knowledge on. And then, of course, there's the side of, we'd want a bigger warehouse and put in some more policies and procedures. That's another thing. Being in this cannabis industry, we're really limited as far as some of the vendors we can use. And so we would want to get some process and procedures in place that just made it an overall smoother experience for our customers. Constantly in bettering our website, making it not just a website that is a product-based website, but it is a website where people can go to and find information,
Well,
educate them
I
on
love how you kind of keep
everything.
hitting that part around education, right? So I think that the new marketing is not just the traditional, let me just tell you about my product, let me tell you the pros and cons of my products, but really it's about educating the consumer, being a thought leader in your industry, being someone that people are going to you for information, not just products. And,
Yeah,
so I'd love to hear all the comments you said about wanting to spend money towards becoming more of that for your end consumer, than opposed to, let me just go buy some other companies, or let me go to, be able to raise everybody's income on it,
right.
although there's small might be pieces to it. So, through our conversation, you talked about just doing research, whether it was research on the SEO side, whether it was, really understanding the different parts of your business and educating yourself before you educate the consumers. What are you researching right now? What's interesting you, or what is interesting to you right now regarding either the cannabis industry or in particular the glassware space, that you're spending time learning about right now, or just in business like you did with SEO? Where are
Yeah.
you spending your time learning now?
So I'm gonna first I'll talk about like the product side. We're doing a lot of research on like what what people enjoy to use. We do feel we always say, we want to help people find that perfect piece. Well, everyone's got different tastes. So we do a lot of surveys where we send out. We do a survey once a month where we send out to our customers that purchase and asking things like, okay, what type of products do you want to see? What is exciting you? What are some new things? So we're trying to find out as much um, about our customers' interest as possible. We feel that's the best way for us to continue to grow is to just ask the people who are going to use the products what is exciting them. So a lot as far as the products, that's what we're researching. What are some trends and things that our end users want to see. As far as business, I will be honest and say SEO is something that I am constantly reading on. It's a revolving door. I don't think you could ever learn as much as humanly possible about it. But then we would want to see, okay, what's the next level or what's the next phase of this? We don't want to just have it be like our standard e-commerce store. How is e-commerce going to be evolving over the next few years? And whether that's, you know, mobile is huge for us, but whether that's like, voice search or whatever it is, what's the next thing that how customers are going to be shopping? And so those are the big things that we're constantly looking at. Okay, what's next as far as how people shop?
So when as I talk to a lot of brands and a lot of owners similar to yourself that are selling to consumers, a lot of people have used the Amazons or the different websites to be able to drive the e-commerce sales. But everybody's trying to figure out how to get direct to consumer. How do you drive people to your own website that there's not a middleman in the process, for you to be able to sell to? Have you guys been thinking about that at all? Do most people go to your website and that's how they find you? Is it that you're doing it through some, and there's probably some type of Amazon for glassware or cannabis stuff that I'm just not aware of, but how are you actually selling?
Yeah, it's direct. We are solely directly through our website.
Wow.
100%. We don't have an Amazon thing because Amazon is it's a gray area for setting up, our
Yep.
types of products. But everything is directly through us. We were doing like an Etsy and an eBay thing, and it just we decided we want to shift solely to our website. So our whole focus is trying to drive people to us, whether that's social outreach or referral programs or whatever it might be. But yeah, we're solely trying to get people to come to our website.
Well, you're ahead of the game on that because in other industries, that's all they're trying to do because they've gotten addicted to the Amazon side. So the good
Yeah,
part is you're ahead of the game of most of the products in the other industries. Last
yeah.
question for you. What was the most memorable day of your career? Whether it was with Fat Buddha Glass or maybe it was some other inflection point in there. And when I say memorable, it could be a funny story. It could be a story that was really impactful. It could be one that you just remember that kind of changed the direction of where it is. But from your perspective, what's one of those most memorable days?
Yeah, for me, the most memorable day, and this happened to us pretty recently, was when we were named on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in the country. And this just happened a few weeks ago. And we ranked in at number 464 out of 5,000.
That's
And
awesome.
we were so proud of that because this is within 4 years. Again, we started with $500, and within 4 years, we're on the Inc. magazine's fastest growing company. And so that was a validation. All the times where my partner and I, 2 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting there boxing things up. It's a validation for all the time that we spent away from our families. All the validation of, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to be a customer focused business, and that's how we're going to grow. To be on that list, it was just a really proud moment, because also it showed that the cannabis industry is now becoming more mainstream and it is now being more accepted. The fact that we made that list, yeah, that was personally, we were very proud of that achievement, but also just the fact that the cannabis industry is becoming more mainstream and on this. It was the proudest day for us. I remember, again, I was telling you earlier, you know, my dad was a sheriff, and that, again, the cannabis thing wasn't a something that we really talked about or was cool. But when we made that list, I remember him just telling me how proud he was of what my partner and I did. And honestly, like, I get like a little emotional about it because it really meant a lot to us. It meant that we were going in the right direction, that we were doing the right things. You know, we're not looking to hit a home run with every single person. We want to build long-term relationships with our customers. And it was just validation on, okay, we're going down the right path, we're doing the right things. And so that day for me was the most memorable one. And the fact that I got to share it with, um, you know, my best friend of over 30 years was really special. And share it with our families, you know. So that was the most memorable moment for us, or at least
That's
for me.
awesome. That's awesome. And I love how you described it. It's a true success story of what you would want to hear from an entrepreneur, right? Did as a side hustle out of the garage with your best
Yeah.
friend, building the business on a passion project of something you really enjoyed that you guys kind of always thought about. And then that business starting to scale and grow to ultimately be on recognized on the Inc. 5000 is exciting. And I'm sure it's just the beginning. And I'm sure you got a lot more celebrations to go. Mike, what's the best way to people to find Fat Buddha Glass if they're looking for purchasing it or finding a little bit more about yourself?
So they can go to our website, it's Fat Buddha Glass, or they could actually just go to fatbud.com. We try to make it as easy as possible to remember the domain. Or you can check it out on Instagram at Fat Buddha Glass. We on our Instagram we try to put up like really cool pictures. We have like an in-house guy and he makes beautiful pictures. So yeah, check us out at fatbud.com or Instagram at Fat Buddha
Uh,
Glass.
that's awesome. Thanks, Mike. I enjoyed the conversation. That was fun.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate all the great conversation.
Thank you for watching the Upreneur Podcast, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share this with anybody who you think needs to hear it.